Kunja Bihari Yashodanandana Brajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Banachari Jamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiro Brahmachari Yamuna Tiro Brahmachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Paraman Sabridhajacharya Sukharita Smadhati Nandi Saraswati Goswami Jaya Ananda Gori Goswami Jaya Ramacharya Haridas Thakur Jaya Saints of the whole Sri Krishna Sri Radha Krishna Gopala Sam Kanda Radha Vrindavan Dham ki jai, Navadip Dham ki jai, Ganga Maya ki jai, Jamuna Maya ki jai, Guru Bhaka Dham ki jai, Swami Bhaktivinoda ki jai, all glories to the all glories to the Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna, everybody. Please welcome to our ongoing discussion on Bhagavad Gita. We are in chapter 4, titled Transcendental Knowledge. And I'll do a quick summary of where we are so far. So in the beginning of this chapter, there's a discussion where Arjuna inquires from Krishna that how is it that he understands that this knowledge is very ancient. When Krishna says that he instructed to sun god millions of years ago, to which Krishna replies that you and me both had many births, but you don't remember them. I do. So in this way, Krishna establishes his position as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and then he mentions the reason for his appearance. Whenever there is a decline in religion, he appears to re-establish religion, to annihilate the demons, and to deliver the pious. After that, he mentions that, well, so in this way, I might appear like an ordinary human being, but my birth and my activities, they are divine. And whoever understands this, having given up, having given at the time of death, giving up their body, they never come back to this material world. And in the last class, we discussed at length verse number 10, where Krishna is saying that, in the past, there were many who achieved perfection. How did they achieve perfection? They were fully absorbed in Krishna. They gave up attachment, fear, and anger. They became purified by knowledge about Krishna, and in this way, they achieved perfection. So in this way, Krishna is giving assurance to Arjuna that, well, you see, it might appear very difficult, but it's not. Perfection can be achieved in this way. So that's where we had stopped last time at verse number 10. So we'll continue with verse number 11. Text 11. ये यथा मां प्रपद्यन्ते तांस्तथैव भजाम्यहम् मां वर्धमानुवर्तन्ते मनुष्या पार्थ सर्वसः. And very important verse. Try to memorize. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation: As all surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. Everyone follows my path in all respects, O son of Pritha. Purport. So, in this verse, Krishna is further elaborating that, in the past, many achieved perfection, right? And they were fully absorbed in Krishna. Now, to the extent that we surrender to Krishna, to that extent we get benefit, right? But regardless, wherever someone is on that spectrum of to the extent that one is surrendering, nevertheless, they still follow the path of devotion towards Krishna. And even those who have not taken up this process, they are also following Krishna, but indirectly. So that is what we will go over in this particular verse. So we'll read Srila Prabhupada's purport. Om Agyantimirandasya Gyananjana Shlakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Purport: Everyone is searching for Krishna in different aspects of his manifestations. So here Srila Prabhupada is saying everyone. So everyone includes those who have taken this path of sadhana bhakti, as well as those who have not taken up, those who are materialists, those who are atheists. Even they are searching for Krishna, but it's just that they don't realize it. So they might not even have heard about Krishna. But what they are seeking in this world is something that they can only get if they approach or surrender Krishna. So in terms of what they are seeking, the source of that is Krishna. So they might not realize it, but actually everyone is searching for Krishna. Some have that realization, some do not. So in this way, everyone follows Krishna's path, but the extent and the realization of their endeavor might vary. So Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is partially realized in his impersonal Brahma Jyoti refulgence. Right? So we have discussed this at length, right? This is the Brahman realization. And also as the all-pervading super soul dwelling within everything. This is the Paramatma realization. So Paramatma resides everywhere, including the particles of atoms. So the Brahman and the Paramatma, they are two different aspects of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which is Krishna. But Krishna is fully realized only by pure devotees. So here Srila Prabhupada is setting up the stage. So everyone includes atheists as well as theists. And even within theists, there are three different categories. Those who have the impersonal idea of the truth, those who have idea of the localized idea of the absolute truth, which is Paramatma, and the personality of the absolute truth. So you see right over here, at least there are three different levels of that realization. But they're all looking for Krishna, because even Brahma Jyoti, what is the source of Brahma Jyoti? That is the personality of Godhead. So in this way, Krishna is the object of everyone's realization. Thus, anyone and everyone is satisfied according to one's desire to have him. So those are only seeking Sat. Then they are attracted by the Brahman realization. Those who are seeking Sat and Chit, they are attracted by the Paramatma realization. And those who are seeking Sat Chit Ananda, they are attracted by the personality of Godhead Krishna. So in this way, everyone and anyone, they are satisfied according to whatever desire they have, what they are seeking for. So even in the spiritual world, Srila Prabhupada mentioned, even in transcendental world, Krishna reciprocates with his pure devotees in the transcendental attitude, just as a devotee wants him. So even in the spiritual world, we talked about the five rasas, the relationship with Krishna in neutrality, servitorship, friendship, parental affection, and conjugal love, right? So there are the five ways in which a devotee might seek Krishna, and then Krishna reciprocates accordingly, right? So one devotee may want Krishna as a supreme master, that is servitorship, another as his personal friend, and another as his son, that is parental affection, and still another as his lover. So Krishna rewards all the devotees equally according to their different intensities of love for him. In the material world, the same reciprocations of feelings are there, and they are equally exchanged by the Lord with different type of worshippers. So there's five kind of relationships. They are, of course, there in the spiritual world, but even in this material world, there are devotees who are already self-realized, or are even those who are on the path of realization. They have affection and attraction towards the Lord in one of the five moods, and the Lord reciprocates accordingly. So the pure devotees, both here and in transcendental abode, associate with him in person and are able to render personal service to the Lord, and thus they derive transcendental bliss in his loving service. See? So it's applicable to both those pure devotees of the two kinds, those who are in the transcendental abode, as well as those who are here in the material world. They are both engaging in the service of the Lord according to their mood. So ideally, for the pure devotees, there is no difference between material world and the spiritual world. As long as they are situated in the service of Krishna, that's what they care about. Narayana parasharve na kutasyana bibyati swarga apavarga narkeshu apitulyartha darshina. So those who are Narayana parayana, those who are engaged in the service of Narayana, those who have given up everything, they have taken shelter of Narayana. They are transcendental to the condition in which they might be situated. Parasarve na kutasyana bibyati, and they are not afraid of anything. Why? How is that manifested? Well, because they are not afraid of anything, having taken shelter of Narayana, they considered heaven, hell, and the spiritual world with equal vision. So it doesn't matter where they are situated, whether in heaven, hell, or spiritual world. They are fully absorbed in the service of Krishna, and that's what they care. As for those who are impersonalists and who want to commit spiritual suicide by annihilating the individual existence of the living entity, Krishna helps also by absorbing them into his effulgence. So the impersonalists are of two categories. All impersonalists are not Mayavadis. So we have talked about the Mayavad philosophy many times. Impersonalists, they are of two kinds, Brahmavadi and Mayavadi. So what is the difference? Well, impersonalists, they by definition, they do not have the idea of the personality of Godhead. But the Brahmavadis, they only have idea of the Brahman, which is the effulgence. But they don't know that this effulgence is coming from Krishna or the Vaikuntha, the spiritual planets, the spiritual sky. So they don't have that idea, but they do not deny the possibility of the existence of the personality of Godhead. But the Mayavadis, they deny the existence of the personality of Godhead, and they are envious of the personality of Godhead. And that is the difference. They say that when different incarnations like Krishna, Rama, when they appear in this world, it's basically they are the absolute truth, which is impersonal, is taking the form of a personality, and that form is the form of illusion. That is not reality. That form is temporary. That form is not real. It's illusory. And then when having appeared, they show that or they achieve perfection, and then they again merge back into the impersonal Brahmans. That is their ideas. In this way, they are denying the personality of Godhead. So in this way, they become envious. But the Brahmavadis, they do not deny. It's just that they don't have the information, right? So the Brahmavadis, because they have limited understanding of the absolute truth, they seek impersonal Brahman. Here Srila Prabhupada mentions it as achieving Brahman. He compares it to committing spiritual suicide. So what is spiritual suicide? Well, suicide means, well, people, when they commit suicide, is when they get frustrated with their life. And they don't see any possibility or way out of their existence, and they just want to destroy their identity. So that is material suicide. Similarly, spiritual suicide, when they are merging the Brahman, their idea is, well, you lose the identity, will merge into the homogeneous light, which is all pervading. And in this way, when we lose our personality, then I don't have to worry about all other aspects that come with personality of different kind of emotions and relationships, and they concluded that they are always a source of problem, right? So in this way, they are committing spiritual suicide. It's just a different form of suicide. Because they are annihilating their individual existence. But nevertheless, Krishna also accepts them. So if we, how does he accept them? Well, he absorbs them into his effulgence. In this way, they are liberated. They are not, they don't have to assume any another material body. Like in the material world, if somebody commits a suicide, they are killing their own body. But then, because of the law of karma, they will have to accept another body. It's just that they don't have that information. Jatasya hi dhruvam mrityu, dhruvam janma mritasya cha. For one who has born, birth, death is certain, and for those who died, another birth is certain. So because they don't have that information, they commit suicide and they end up getting another body. So if somebody wants to commit suicide, better they commit spiritual suicide. Right? Though it is not the highest perfection, at least Krishna even accepts those, by absorbing them into his effulgence, and they get the Brahman realization. So such impersonalists do not agree to accept the eternal blissful personality of Godhead. So here Prabhupada is specifically referring to the Mayavadi category of impersonalists. Consequently, they cannot relish the bliss of the transcendental personal service to the Lord, having extinguished their individuality. So Brahman is only Sat. Is Brahman realization is only the Sat realization. Well, that the soul is eternal. One can have that realization when they merge into the Brahman. But then there is no Chit. There is no knowledge beyond that. Hey, where is this Brahman coming from? Oh, well, there is the personality of Godhead. So they're not aware of the reality. The knowledge is missing, and definitely the ananda is missing. The ananda, or the joy that comes from serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his devotees. some of them who are not firmly situated even in the impersonal existence return to this material field to exhibit their dormant desire for activities. Because the soul by nature is active. The soul is also Satchit Ananda, just like the Lord is Satchit Ananda. So when the Brahman, they realize the Sat, but the Chit and the Ananda potencies, they are there within the soul. And the Brahman, the realization, there is no avenue to engage those propensities. So there are those dormant desires for activities. Soul is by nature active. After a long time, they don't feel satisfied being merged in the Brahman, right? And so they again have to come back to this material field. Why? Because again they don't have the idea about the positive aspect, that the spirit, about the personality of Godhead in the spiritual planets. That's why they are not admitted to the spiritual planets, but they again given chance to act on the material planets. So that's the first kind of class of people or category of people who are seeking Krishna without realizing that they are seeking the impersonal aspect of Krishna. Then the second category is the fruity workers, which those who engage in karma, also called karmis. The Lord awards their desired results of prescribed duties as Yagneshwara, right? So we discussed this also at length, right? In the we discussed the entire process of yagya, right? That by performing dharma and offering, performing work according to dharma and offering the results to Krishna, or even if they don't have idea of Krishna, they offer it in yagya. But who is the beneficiary of yagya? Well, it is Krishna, right? So they are indirectly worshipping Krishna even if they don't have knowledge. And even if they approach demigods, the demigods also get their potency to provide benediction based on the mercy of Krishna. So they are not independent of Krishna. And so in this way, Krishna is actually rewarding the results of their sacrifices, right? So in this way, they are also seeking Krishna indirectly without realizing it. And then Krishna is reciprocating, right? So how did he reciprocate for the Gyanis? Well, he reciprocated by absorbing them in the spiritual effulgence. For the karmis, the fruity workers, the Lord is again reciprocating by providing the results of their sacrifices. And the yogis, they are generally interested in seeking mystic power. So the idea is that, well, when someone performs Ashtanga yoga, which is very difficult, but by performance of their Ashtanga yoga, what happens is these yogis, they have the realization of Paramatma, because they pretty much stop all their bodily activities slowly, the mental, the material thoughts which pervade the mind, and they are able to absorb that and focus on the localized aspect of the absolute truth. They control the different airs within the body. In this way, by having realized Paramatma, they acquire the qualities, transcendental qualities of the Paramatma, and because of that, the byproduct of that is that they have the siddhis, the ashta siddhis. So it's a natural outcome, but a devotee, when a devotee is performing Ashtanga yoga, even in the past ages, they like Narada in his previous life, he was the son of a maid servant, and then he goes to the forest and he meditates on the Paramatma within his heart, and in this way he has realized the Paramatma and he gets supreme bliss, right? So devotees are seeking that satisfaction in realizing God within one's heart. They are not seeking mystic powers. So all the yoga, karma yoga, jnana yoga, ashtanga yoga, there is a devotional dimension. But when somebody does not have the good fortune of associating with the devotees, they miss the devotional dimension and they are attracted by the other byproducts of that process. Like the yogis, the actual purpose of the yoga again is to realize the Supreme Lord. But then when the realization comes, because of the realization, one becomes regains or the realizes the qualities, right? The spiritual qualities in which along with comes the associated potencies. So they become godlike, just like iron. When you put iron in fire, it becomes red hot and acquires the quality of fire. So by realizing the Paramatma, the yogi might acquire this, some of those potencies from Paramatma. So they can anima, lagima, they can become lighter than air or heavier than a mountain. They can reach any part of this universe just by thinking. They can acquire, achieve whatever they desire, right? Just by thinking about it. They can control others. Uh, and make them act or behave the way one wants. So there are so many siddhis that one can achieve, but it's a natural byproduct. But the yogis, they are attracted by it. Again, Srila Prabhupada is referring to those yogis who are performing Ashtanga yoga just to achieve this kind of mystic powers, but they don't know the real purpose of this Ashtanga yoga. In other words, everyone is dependent for success upon his mercy alone. So even the yogis, they are not able to get those mystic powers on their own accord, right? What is the source? Source is again Paramatma. So all the kinds of spiritual processes are different degrees, are but different degrees of success on the same path. But if they come to the knowledge, if they come to the understanding that what is the ultimate purpose, what is the real reason for performing Ashtanga Yoga, what is the real reason for performing Yajna, what is the real reason for acquiring knowledge, then they will come to the proper understanding of the absolute truth. So unless, therefore, one becomes the highest perfection of Krishna consciousness, all attempts remain imperfect. In Srimad Bhagavatam 2.3.10, it is said, Akama sarva kamo va moksha kama udaradi tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusaparam. Very important verse. So he says, well, that different people, those who have material desires, there is all kind of desires. Sarva kamo, material desires. Akama, that means no desires. So not only those who have all desires, even those who do not have any desires. And beyond that, the third category is even those people who have the desire for liberation. These three categories of people, they can achieve whatever they are desiring. How? Tivrena bhakti yogena. Yajeta purusa param. So tivra, by intense devotion, bhakti, if one worships the Supreme Person, Yajeta Purusa Param, then they will achieve that perfection, right? So this is the understanding of how different people approach Krishna and how Krishna reciprocates them. In Srimad Bhagavatam, there's a particular verse. He says that even atheists who deny the personality of Godhead, I think the verse, the way it is stated, it says that the personality that is denied by the atheists is also me, right? So whoever, so if you look at the word atheists, right? Somebody goes and says, well, I am an atheist. Well, what is the definition of atheist? Well, even the very definition of atheist is dependent on God, right? It is the category of people who deny God, right? So that means that their ideology is, though it is in negation, though it is denying God, is still dependent on God. So Krishna is saying that in this way, everyone is approaching Krishna in a different way. So I'll take a pause over here. Anyone have any questions or comments? Okay. No questions. On to the next verse. Verse number 12. Kankshantah karmanam siddhim yajanta iha devata Shipram hi manushe loke siddhir bhavati karmaja. Translation: Men in this world desire success in fruitive activities and therefore they worship the demigods. Quickly, of course, men gets results from fruitive work in this world. Now Krishna is elaborating. Actually, Srila Prabhupada, in the previous purport, he has elaborated on the different categories, and now Krishna is mentioning how different people achieve what they desire based on his potency. Actually, so he says there are people who desire success, and they're approaching demigods, and by approaching them they quickly get the results. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada mentions that there is a great misconception about gods or demigods of this material world, and men of less intelligence, although they pass as great scholars, take these demigods to be various forms of the supreme god. So there's a common misconception, right? So when people they talk about Hinduism, uh, you know, especially in the West, when they take a class on world religion, right? And so they might learn Islam, Christianity, and when it comes to Hinduism, which is an umbrella of different beliefs within uh, those who are followers of the Vedas. Well, they always call Hinduism as a polytheistic religion, right? And there is, so here Sri Prabhupada is saying, well, there is a misunderstanding, right? What is a misunderstanding? That they do not understand the difference between demigods and the supreme personality of Godhead. So even all the 330 million demigods and demigoddesses, well, they say, well, they are just different forms, the same absolute truth. So in this way, they make no distinction between the devatas and different Vishnu forms or incarnations. So actually, demigods are not different forms of God. God can have multiple forms, but those are all Vishnu incarnations. Like, so you have Narsimha, Vamana, Varaha, Matsya, Kurma. So those are different forms of the God. But the devatas, the different demigods, they are not the expansions of God in this full same potency, right? They are different tattva, jiva tattva. So we are all jivas. What is the difference? Well, jivas, they are tatastha, meaning, tata means the beach, right? On the beach, sometimes there is water, sometimes there is no water, right? If there is what they call, yeah, the ebbs, right? The ebb and what's the other one? We call it bharti and oat. In English, there is a term I can't recall. So one is ebb, when the water ebbs back, but then there is water when it encroaches the beach. In this way, the beach is sometimes covered with water and sometimes it's not. Similarly, the jivatma, or the living entity, is sometimes under the influence of the spiritual energy or the internal energy of the Lord, and sometimes the jiva is covered by Maya. So demigods are also like that. By dint of their pious activities, they acquire superior position in heavenly planets, and they are in charge of different responsibilities in the administration of this universe. And so, in this way, they are appointed by God, but they cannot become God. They are also fallible. Once their pious activities are over, again they come to this karma bhumi, vritti loka, to again as a human, and then they have to again perform pious activities as they wish to elevate to the heavenly planets. But the God is one, and the parts and parcels are many, right? So all the jivatmas, they are unlimited. But the God is one. So Veda says Nityo Nityanam. Ishvara Parama Krishna. So there are many Ishvara. Ishvara means controller. But who is the supreme controller? Paramaha Krishna. Supreme control is Krishna. So Supreme God is one, Krishna, and the demigods are delegated with powers to manage the material world. The demigods are living entities, Nityanam. So the living entities are also Nitya or eternal. And we might be endowed with different grades of material power based on our past activities, but we cannot be equal to Supreme God, Narayana. We can never become Vishnu, we cannot become Krishna. A Jiva, by the dint of its past activities, can become Brahma. We cannot become Narayana, Vishnu, or Krishna. Also, Shiva, it's not possible. But Shiva is he's a manifestation of Vishnu, having as if like a milk when it turns sour turns into yogurt. Similarly, Vishnu, for the purpose of creation and destruction of this material world, expands and acquires a tinge of material modes of passion and ignorance, and that is Lord Shiva or Shiva Tattva. Because Vishnu is pure goodness. So anyone who thinks that God and the demigods are on the same level is called an atheist or pasandi. So the different definition of atheist. So atheist in general is one who denies the personality of Godhead. And that denial can come in so many ways. Well, one who do not believe in any kind of supreme power or authority. That is a common understanding of the word atheist. But even in this, according to this definition, even the Brahma, the impersonalists, right? Because they also consider Vishnu, Krishna, and all the and the demigods on the same level. Why? Well, they say, well, absolute truth is impersonal, and sometimes that absolute truth assumes a form and comes on this into this world. So in this worldview, there is no distinction between Krishna and the demigods, and they all are illusory forms of the supreme truth, which is impersonal. That is their understanding. So they are also denying the personality of Godhead, and they are actually considering God and demigods on the same level. So they are also atheists. So except for the devotees, no one has the proper understanding of who the absolute truth is. So they all consider God and the demigods to be on the same level. So that is just another form of atheism. Even great demigods like Brahma and Shiva cannot be compared to the Supreme Lord. In fact, Lord is worshipped by demigods such as Brahma and Shiva. Shiva Virinchi Nutam. We see Lord Shiva always meditating. Well, whom is he meditating on? He's meditating on Vishnu. Yet, curiously enough, there are many human leaders who are worshipped by foolish men under the misunderstanding of anthropomorphism or zoomorphism. These are different ideologies in theistic sciences. Any kind of sciences you learn in university, they come up with fancy names, generally derived from Latin, to categorize different belief systems. And the idea of anthropomorphism, anthropology, right? We understand it is the study of humans or the civilization of the humans. So the morphism means form, and then anthropo refers to the human aspect of it. So what it literally means is that the idea of anthropomorphism means that the class of people who believe that the absolute truth, the supreme power, assumes a form of a human. And zoomorphism, again, zoo is a place where we have different creatures and animals. And the idea of zoomorphism is that, hey, there are people who believe that the absolute truth or supreme power assumes the form of an animal. So there are different ideas. So this is how they classify different theistic beliefs. So here Srila Prabhupada is saying that there are many human leaders who are worshipped by foolish men. So these are ordinary people who claim that I am God, right? So if you go to India also, you'll find so many individuals, different personality cults who claim that, well, I'm God, right? And so these people will fall in that category where the ordinary human being is assumed to be God, or people worship animals. That's also there, and then they worship the animals as a supreme being, or they might worship an ordinary human being as a supreme being. So that is just a foolish idea. Iha Devta denotes a powerful man or a demigod of this material world. So a demigod or a Devta obviously is one of the 330 million forms or the positions which are designated by Krishna. But even beyond that, in this world uh, that we live in, right, there are no devtas as such, but there are people who might have some of those attributes to a relatively higher level, right? So you take some of the richest people on the planet, or the people who are beautiful or very attractive, or those who have a lot of knowledge, those who are very renounced. And so they have the potencies, all the six potencies of Krishna, which demigods also have, but in different extent, right? They're not the six attributes of Bhagavan. They are manifested in the demigods. Not all of them, some of them. And even those who are manifested, they're not fully manifested as much as they are manifested in Krishna, but to some extent they are manifested. So similarly, in this world also you will see people who have those potencies, beauty, knowledge, renunciation, wealth, uh, uh, to a higher extent than most people of this world, but it's not as high as demigods either. So for this reason, they can also be considered as demigod. And then because people worship them, sometimes you see uh, people, they consider them their idols, right? They look upon such personalities, and then they kind of adore them, and by adoration they are worshiping it, right? So uh, there are many such personalities, but they all get their potencies from Krishna, who is the supreme personality of Godhead. He does not belong to this world. He is above this material world. He is transcendental to it. So even Sripad Sankaracharya, the leader of the impersonalists, he said that Narayana or Krishna is beyond this material creation. So Sankaracharya actually, there was a specific reason he appeared. Well, people, they had given up Vedic traditions under the influence of Buddhism, and Buddhism rejects all the Vedas, and it's an atheistic philosophy, right? Voidism, they believe in void. Well, absolute truth is void. There is nothing, not even Brahman. And so, if you want to bring about a mass change in the society at scale, you cannot propose an idea which is drastically different. All changes have to be incremental. So the purpose for Sankaracharya to appear was to re-establish the authority of the Vedas. So in order to do that, he appeared, and by using different grammatical mimics, he this is Lord Shiva himself. He was appointed by Krishna to appear. And what he did, he presented an impersonal commentary on the Vedanta Sutras, Saririk Bhashya of Sankaracharya. What he concluded, well, yes, there is absolute truth. Not like Buddhism, which says, well, there is no absolute truth, right? He said, no, there is absolute truth. There is something spiritual. But what is the nature of that spirituality? Well, it does not have any form, no name, no qualities. And so that is almost as good as void. So it's covered atheism. But people accepted the idea because it was not very far away from the Buddhist idea of being void. He just called it a different name. And he says, well, no, there is a supreme spirit, but then doesn't have any quality, names, and forms. So in this way, he tricked them. But by doing so, he established the authority of the Vedas. So though he presented himself as an impersonalist, of course, he is devotee. So there are few references, so he did not spend a lot of time elaborating that in his teachings. But even he mentions that Narayana or Krishna is beyond this material creation. But foolish people who are devoid of knowledge, or they lack the knowledge, they worship the demigods because they want immediate results. As Krishna says that worshipping the demigods, one can immediately achieve material benedictions that they are seeking. So they get the results, but they do not know that results are obtained are temporary and they're meant for less intelligent people. Because, well, less intelligence because they don't realize that it's going to go away. It's temporary. It's not permanent. Intelligence means to seek something that's going to last with us for a long time, right? Many times, researchers, sociologists, they do different experiments. Like one of the experiments they do is about instant gratification. He says, they would call a cohort of people and they would say, well, I'll give you $100 right now in cash, no strings attached. Would you rather take $100 now, or 90 days later, or 6 months later, I'll give you $120, right? And then you'll say, well, most people might say, who's seen, what will happen in 6 months? So let me take $100 now, right? So the idea of instant gratification, people don't wait for something that is more substantial, but might be available in future. So similarly, the demigods, they provide instant gratification. Krishna Bhakti will take time, and we have to go through all those stages that we discussed last time, right? Adav Shraddha, Sadhu Sangha, Bhajana Kriya, Anartha Nivritti. We have to remove all our anarthas. Then we'll get some Ruchi, Asakti, attachment, Ruchi, and Nishtha, right? Bhava, Prema. So there are different stages that one has to go through. So it takes a long process, but that is permanent, right? It's substantial, it's everlasting. So those who are intelligent, they would seek something that is everlasting, though it might take some time. But somebody interested in instant gratification, and they are attracted by different promises offered in the Vedas. So the intelligent person is in Krishna consciousness. He has no need to worship the paltry demigods for some immediate but temporary benefit. So the demigods of this material world, as well as their worshippers, they will vanish at the annihilation of this material world. So the demigods might have a very long life according to material calculation, but even their position is not permanent. So the boons of the demigods are material, they are temporary. Both material worlds and their inhabitants, including the demigods and their worshippers, are simply bubbles in this large cosmic ocean. In this world, however, human society is mad after temporary things such as material opulence of possessing land, family, and enjoyable paraphernalia. So this was the challenge of Arjuna, dilemma, right? Well, he thought after winning the war, I will have land, family, and other things to enjoy. So land and opulence is, but I won't have family. So with whom will I enjoy? That was his challenge, dilemma. So people, they're generally seeking this because that's the only way they know that they can achieve some happiness. Even do they know that this is not going to last forever, but they act as if it's going to last forever, right? So that is called pashyan api na pashyati. You're seeing, but you're still not seeing. You see that, well, neither my father was able to enjoy, neither my grandfather and my friends, or you see they're seeing people, they are working hard to acquire these things, and they can go at any moment, even before death, and definitely at the time of death. So they see, but they do not see. So to achieve such temporary things, people worship demigods or powerful men in the human society, right? We all seek favors. If you have nice books of someone who is an authority or position, then I can get some favors, right? So that's the same idea in the worship of the demigods. You be nice to them who are in charge of different positions, and you get some favors from them. But if a man gets some ministership in the government by worshipping a political leader, he considers that he has achieved a great boon. So many assignments are like this, right? Whenever a president is elected, well, then he will or she will come with a committee of ministers, and those appointments will happen, right? So that is, those appointments are just by choice, right? Whoever comes in will say, I want such and such person to run this department, right? So these are all favors. And when they achieve this position, they think, wow, okay, this is perfection. I have achieved it. But they don't really, well, after 4 years, there's another leader going to come. And then their position is won't won't be there anymore. And sometimes even within those 4 years, even before the 4 years get over, sometimes they lose the position, as we saw in the previous administration. You always get into the ego clash with the ex-president, and then like you would just fire them, right? It's just open door, revolving door. They come in and they go out. So all of them, they are therefore kowtowing to the so-called leaders or big guns in order to achieve temporary boons. And they indeed achieve such things. Such foolish men are not interested in Krishna consciousness for the permanent solution to the hardships of material existence. So, what are the hardships of material existence? Birth, old age, disease, and death. Everyone is subjected to this. No one is immune to it. So, unless we seek some permanent solution for this, all our attempts will be baffled. They all are after sense enjoyment. To get a little facility for sense enjoyment, they are attracted to worshipping empowered living entities known as demigods. This verse indicates that people are rarely interested in Krishna consciousness. They are mostly interested in material enjoyment, and therefore they worship some powerful living entity. Any questions on this verse? Okay, moving on. Verse number 13. It's a very, very important verse. चतुर्वर्ण्यं मया सृष्टं गुणकर्म विभागशः तस्य कर्तारम् अपि मां विधीय कर्तारम् अव्ययम्. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. According to the three modes of material nature and the work associated with them, the four divisions of human society are created by me. And although I am the creator of this system, you should know that I am yet the non-doer, being unchangeable. There's a lot to unpack over here. Chaturvarna. Varna literally means color. Like we say Suvarna. Suvarna means gold. It's nice to look at. The gold glitters. So Varna literally means color. So here what color it's referring to? Four divisions of human society is referring to the brown people from the subcontinent in Latin America, the yellowish complexioned people from East Asia, or the blacks and the whites, or is it the four colors that are being referred to? No, it's not the color of the skin here. The color is the color of the nature. There are different natures of that one acquires through samskaras. So the four classes of men, the Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Sudra, those are the varnas, and those are the basis of the varnashram system. Here Krishna is saying this system is created by me, Maya. System, I created it. And what was the basis of the creation? He says guna and karma. So by quality and the work associated with that quality is the primary criteria. Now, many times that guna is acquired through janma. So by janma, we are put into a particular family. And then because we spend most of the time with our family members, we acquire the qualities of the varna in which we are born. But somehow or other, if one has qualities which is different from the varna in which they were born, then they should be accepted as such according to the guna. So ultimately, it is guna. So janma could be a mechanism by which one acquires guna, but ultimately it's guna. So one is recognized for the gunas. So Krishna created this and the division of labor, vibhagasha. And he says, Tasya kartaram api mam, though I am the one who created. Here Krishna is again establishing how his creation is different. Krishna says, my birth and activities are divine. So how his activities are divine? See, generally, what happens is, yeah, let me finish this. So why is saying that, though I am the doer, though I am the creator of the system, I am a non-doer, akartaram, because I am unchangeable. Yeah, read that again. Although I am the creator of the system, you should know that I am yet the non-doer, being unchangeable. How do you understand this? I created this, but I'm not the doer. What does that mean? Anyone has a guess? The answer Krishna is giving, because I am unchangeable. This is your clue. So what happens when we create something? We are also little controllers, Ishvara, minute controllers. Mm. Anyone has a guess? What could this mean potentially? Yes, Prabhu, Nitin.
Is Lord Krishna referring that here that he is not affected by the three modes and also does not accrue any karma? That way, he's unchangeable.
Yeah. So, yeah, very well said. So generally what happens is, if you have to elaborate on that idea, so yeah, there's a karmic implication of it. But even in the process, suppose I want to create something, then I I have to be motivated by to act on it, right? So jnana, game, abhigyata, trivida karma chodana. So the impetus for the action comes from jnana, knowledge about that object, right? Jnana, gyam, that means the object that I'm aspiring to achieve. I should have knowledge about that. Then I should have knowledge how to acquire it. And then the knower, which is myself. So here the self that is being referred to of a living entity is also a soul. He's also unchangeable. But the way he's acting, he's not realizing his original identity as a soul. So the self that he is considering is the self that is made up of the material modes, could be the gross biological body or the subtle body comprising of mind, intelligence, and ego. So you see now there is a change in his subtle body. That I he needs to have, in order to do anything, I have to be motivated, right? So that impetus itself changes the composition of the subconsciousness or the consciousness, the mental makeup. And then when it goes through the process, there are 5 factors that affect the success, right? We discussed that also. Adhisthanam tatha karana, karanam cha prithak vida, vividasya prithak chesta, daivam cha vatra panchamam. So there is place, there is circumstances, there are different instruments that we use, the endeavors that we make, right? So all of that, when we are going through the process of creation, we are learning from our failures as we make multiple attempts and we improve, right? So uh, that process actually transforms us, regardless of our success or failures. And we are changing, right? And then when we get the results, and if it is failure, then depending on how we deal with it, we might become morose. We are again affected by it. And if we get a success, if we not realize spiritually realize, then we might be affected by our successes. We might become proud. So in this way, our self, whatever the understanding of self that we have, uh, the material understanding or the false ego, so we are changing. We are getting changed in the process. But Krishna is all spirit, right? He doesn't have a material body. He's Atmaram, he's self-satisfied. So when he is acting, he has no impetus to work. There's no reason for him to work. He's not trying to achieve something because he already has everything, right? If I lack something and I want to achieve it, then there is impetus for me and I aspire to achieve it. Krishna has everything. What does he need to achieve? There's nothing that out there that he doesn't have it. So there's no impetus for him to work. He's not trying to achieve anything. And then he's not getting affected by whatever he has. And so in this way, he is unchangeable. So that's why he is non-doer. So that's the difference between Krishna's action and our action. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada mentioned the Lord is creator of everything. Everything is born of him. Everything is sustained by him. And after annihilation, everything rests in him. Right. So in this way, he's the creator. And he's also the creator of the four divisions of the social order, beginning with the intelligent class of men, technically called Brahmanas. Because they are Brahman. Brahman means truth. Right. And because they are situated in that quality of, so truth is in the mode of goodness, they are known as Brahmanas. The administrative class is technically called Kshatriyas. Kshat is to harm, Triya is to deliver. There's a class of people who deliver people from being harmed, are Kshatriyas. They are situated in the mode of passion, right? Because, they're with the military spirit, they have to act and protect, right? So that requires some passion. And the mercantile men, which are interested in business, they are called Vaishyas because they are situated in the mixed mode of passion and ignorance. They are passionate to achieve and gain wealth. Uh, and then those material objects, the pursuance of material objects is in the mode of ignorance. So both passion and ignorance is there. And Sudras or the laborer class are generally situated in the mode of ignorance. So, in spite of creating the four divisions of human society, the Lord does not belong to any of these divisions because he is not a conditioned soul, a section of whom form the human society. So, neither is Krishna the doer, but he also does not belong to any of the four divisions. Because the four divisions are based on what? They're based on the material modes of nature. Srila Prabhupada explained Brahmanas are in goodness, Kshatriyas are in passion, Vaishyas are mixture of passion and ignorance, and Sudras are laborers. It's because our body is made up of the modes, we tend to be affected by it. But Krishna is all spirit, right? He is not affected by the modes. So if he's not affected by the modes, how can he be one of these four varnas? He does not fall into any of the varnas. Um, and Shishupal took an objection to this. He says, yeah, Krishna, we don't, when Krishna was being appointed the chief beneficiary or the chief person to be worshipped in the Rajasuya Yajna performed by Yudhishthir, the question came up, whom should we appoint, right? And they appointed Krishna, and everyone was happy. But then Shishupal, he objected. He said, how can you appoint Krishna? And he insulted Krishna in, by calling him different names. Like 100 insults. There was a limit before, he would be killed. So anyway, one of the things he says is that, we don't even know his varna. Generally, you would worship someone who is from a respectable background. And, he said, well, there are so many personalities over here. There is Narada Muni, there is Shiva, Brahma, everyone's here. He said, you're not worshipping any of them and you're worshipping Krishna. This person, we don't even know whether he is a Vaishya or he is a Kshatriya. Some say he's the son of Vasudev, some say he's the son of Nanda Maharaj. What is his background? Is he a Kshatriya, the son of Vasudev, or is he a Vaishya, is he son of Nanda, or is he mixed background, right? He's born here but raised over there, is Varna Sankara, right? So in this way, is a Shupal question. Well, he does not belong to any Varna. Where does he belong? So it is true, yeah, Krishna does not belong to any Varna because he's beyond the Varnas. So he's not, he can appear wherever he wants. Did I accidentally go back? Yeah, I did. So human society is similar to any other animal society, but to elevate men from the animal status, the above mentioned divisions are created by the Lord for systematic development of Krishna consciousness, right? So in many ways, humans are not different from animal, right? They say man is a social animal. So there is a social dimensions even in animal society, right? How lions, they, go in their groups. There is a pride of lioness, and there is a lion, right? Or different sea animals, their group dynamics. But in human society is more evolved. But simply by that evolved social arrangements in terms of caste, creed, nationality, religion, different trade arrangements, World Trade Organization, United Nations, so many different organizations and associations. And so it's much more elaborated, but that does not make us better than animals, because primarily we are still engaging in eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Real elevation comes when one pursues spirituality and answers question and tries to get answers for questions like what is the purpose of life, what happens after death. So that systematic spiritual realization of Krishna consciousness can be achieved by engaging people according to their proclivities, which comes from association with the modes of nature. As we saw, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, they are across the spectrums of the three modes of nature, Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. So if we cannot ignore the propensities, we cannot artificially try to suppress those those propensities. But by engaging people in those propensities, even if they are materially inclined with fruity mentality in the beginning, they could be trained to give up the fruity mentality, which can come while the allurement for the attraction for enjoyment will slowly diminish due to law of diminishing returns. But if they are engaged according to their nature, they will be still impelled to work despite of whether they are good at it or not, whether they like it or not. And when they are trained to offer the results in sacrifices, they cultivate jnana and vairagya. So vairagya comes when they don't want to enjoy for their own propensity, for their own satisfaction. The natural question comes, well, then who is this for? Well, it is for Krishna's satisfaction. So that is jnana. So by cultivation of jnana and vairagya, they can be systematically elevated. So that is the reason Krishna created. So Krishna created a material world because the Jivatmas, they wanted to enjoy independently of Krishna. So that arrangement is also provided by Krishna. At the same time, Krishna is providing another arrangement by which not only they can maintain their livelihood, but at some point they will come to the realization, well, they do not belong over here. So for that reason, Krishna has created this for the living entities, not for his own agenda, right? He does not have anything to achieve. He's Atmaram, or self-satisfied. So the tendency of a particular man toward a work is determined by the modes of material nature which he has acquired. Such symptoms of life according to different modes of material nature are described in the 18th chapter of this book. So in the 18th chapter, classification of all kind of activities according to the three modes of nature are described in much more detail. What are the three kinds of charity? What are the three kinds of austerity? Three kinds of fasting, right? Anything you can imagine or anything that exists in this world can be divided into three categories according to the modes of nature. So a person in Krishna consciousness, a Vaishnava, is actually above even the Brahmanas. Although the Brahmanas by quality are supposed to know about Brahman, the absolute truth, most of them approach only the impersonal Brahman manifestation of Lord Krishna. So here Prabhupada is making an important point. So Brahmana comes from the root word Brahman. So Brahmanas, they are seeking absolute truth, but in the impersonal understanding of that absolute truth, the Brahman. The devotees, they are much beyond it, right? That the Vaishnavas, they have the understanding of the form of the absolute truth. And in this way, the Vaishnava is beyond even the Brahmana. So again, just like the Lord does not fall within any of the four categories of Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. Similarly, pure devotees of Krishna also do not belong to any of the four categories. So they are above these four categories. as long as we are, properly situated in our devotion. But a man who transcends the limited knowledge of Brahman and reaches the knowledge of Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, becomes a person in Krishna consciousness, or in other words, a Vaishnava. So Vaishnava is above the four modes or the four varnas. Krishna consciousness includes knowledge of all the different plenary expansions of Krishna. So as soon as one understands Krishna, all his plenary expansions, which are not demigods, which are plenary means they are fully potent as Krishna. Well, there are many. Here some of them are mentioned: Rama, Narsingha, Varaha. So they realize all those forms as soon as they realize Krishna. And Krishna is transcendental to this system of four divisions of human society. Similarly, a person in Krishna consciousness is also transcendental to all the divisions of the society, whether we consider divisions of community, nations, or species. But just to set an example, even the devotees, they would still engage in as per the Varna classification, because see what happens is, if you look at the society at large, you can assume that most people won't be directly attracted to spirituality, right? So at scale, we cannot present Krishna consciousness to everyone. Not everyone is ready to take it up. But everyone has to work, right? And no matter whether it's an atheistic civilization or theistic civilization, the four classes naturally come out, right? There is a labor class, there is a mercantile class, there is an administrative class, there is the intellectual class. But if you do organize a society systematically according to the gunas or the nature, the propensities, what will happen that they will be self-satisfied because they are situated in their natural propensity to work, and slowly they could be cultivated in knowledge of what the purpose of life is. They could be cultivated to engaged in performance of sacrifices. So in this way, the Varna system is non-sectarian. Right? If you see the traditional Vedic societies, it's not that they were all Vaishnavas, but they were engaged in this in activities according to these four divisions, which are based on the nature, and that was their path to gradual spiritual elevation. So real secular society means establishing the four varnas. That is secular society. And you don't have to introduce any kind of worship. Somebody could be a Muslim and still be part of the Varnashram, could be Christian, could be a worshipper of a demigod, could be a Jew, whatever, right? Doesn't matter. You can continue to have their belief systems, but by being a part of the Varnashram system, they can make gradual spiritual advancement. So yeah, traditionally societies were secular. They think, oh, this was all they're following Hinduism. No, there were atheists in the Vedic societies and the kingdoms, and people who do not believe in God, and all kind of philosophies. But then the basis of division and engagement is again Varnashram. So this is the real division. So the devotees, though they are above Varnashram, they might still practice in it. Just to set an example, I was reading a conversation earlier by Srila Prabhupada, in which he's saying that, well, we have limited followers who are following, and they can be elevated to the position of a Vaishnava, but we cannot expect the entire society at large to take up the process. They have to be gradually elevated, and for them we have to show, well, this how this approach of division of the society according to Varna works, and just set an example. The devotees might still be engaged according to the Varna, so they voluntarily participate in it. Like Krishna, having born in the family of Kshatriya, he acted like that. That doesn't mean Krishna's Varna is that of a Kshatriya. Or in Vrindavan, when he um, appeared or was raised by Nanda Maharaj and all the residents of Vrindavan, doesn't mean that he is a Vaishya. Right? He's beyond that, but yet he participates or acts according to those roles, just to set an example. So let me take a pause. Anyone has any questions, comments on this? No questions? Okay. Of course, the devotee also has to, when I say devotee, is someone who is self-realized and is situated, sthita pragya. And in that, at that level of realization, one is beyond the four varnas. But if one is not situated, one can be gradually elevated again through participating in work according to the varna classification. But once one achieves realization, one is situated properly, then he's not bound by the four varnas. So in that sense, a Vaishnava is beyond the four varnas. Okay, there's one more verse probably we can take. Maybe we should be able to cover. Let's try. Verse number 14. न मां कर्माणि लिम्पन्ति न मे कर्म फले स्पृहा इति मां यो विजानाति कर्मभिर्न स बध्यते. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. There is no work that affects me, nor do I aspire for fruits of action. One who understands this truth about me also does not become entangled in fruitive reactions of work. So it's the same line of theme. But Krishna says, one who understands that my birth is divine does not take another birth. Similarly, one who understands that I am not affected by work, such a person himself is not affected by the fruitive reactions of his work, right? That's a similar kind of idea. So by acquiring the nature of God, by realizing his nature, we become godlike. And when we become godlike, same things that applies to him, we also uh, uh, get we acquire similar qualities, and so just like he's not affected, we also don't get affected by the fruits of the action. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada mentioned, as there are constitutional laws in the material world stating that a king can do no wrong, or that king is not subject to the state laws, similarly the Lord, although he is the creator of this material world, is not affected by the activities of the material world. So even in this material world, I mean, it's not exactly same as Krishna, because Krishna is a benevolent and a kind and a just person, right? And he's a supreme person. So, whatever he does is true. So when he says whatever the king does, he can do no wrong. Sometimes it's mostly true in the sense that the king offers a good character. But even we see that even in this material world where somebody, not everyone is fully pure like Krishna, and so they might have different faults, and sometimes they abuse their power. But the laws are still like that. Just like as long as one is the president, you cannot at the most, they have a different set of laws. Maybe they could, if that individual does something really bad, then he could be thrown out of the position at the most, right? It must be something really, really bad. Just like we saw with the previous president, right? He had to go through the trial. What is it called? What's the term that they use? But that does not happen so often. But even then, you won't be punished like an ordinary criminal. And so there is some sort of immunity, right, that comes with the position. Similarly, we see there are the consul generals, right, who have embassies. So if the consul general of India, who uh, is appointed in US at a local embassy, he's not subject to the laws of United States, right? So he has some immunity against from, right, the local laws. right? That comes with the position. Similarly, the example that is given over here, that the constitutional laws in this material world, whether it's someone an administrator or a king, and they are above the law to some extent, because they are not supremely absolute, but to some extent, because they have more authority and power than the ordinary civilian. To that extent, they are above constitutional laws. They have some protection. So king is not subject to the state law. Similarly, but the Lord is supremely powerful and he is absolute in all respects, right? So there is no question of he being under the control of those laws, though he might choose to abide by the laws, but he is not obliged to. Although he is the creator of this material world, he is not affected by the activities of the material world. So this is another example I've given many times, like a jailer when he entered the cell by his own choice and might ask the guard to close the door. So he and the prisoner both are in the same cell, but there's a difference between the two individuals, right? One of them is by choice, the other one is forced to enter the prison. So he creates and he remains aloof from the creation, whereas the living entities are entangled in fruitive results of material activities because of their propensities for lording it over the material resources. So we have an impetus, we have a desire to achieve something, we act on it, we achieve it. In this way, we are affected by it. But the Lord has nothing to achieve, nothing to aspire. He is the owner of everything. And so though he acts, he is a non-doer and is not implicated in the fruitive reactions. The proprietor of an establishment is not responsible for the right and wrong activities of the workers, but the workers are themselves responsible, right? It's like somebody might have a factory, and if a worker comes and does something illegal, you cannot hold the owner of that factory and an enterprise to be responsible for it. Everyone is responsible for their own actions. The living entities are engaged in their respective activities of sense gratification, and these activities are not ordained by the Lord. The Lord has provided provision, but it's a choice of the living entity. I mean, the same senses can be used in the satisfaction of Krishna's senses, right? So it depends on us how we use it. Anything can be used for a good purpose or a bad purpose. So the activities of sense gratification, they are not ordained. At least that's not the purpose for which this material world was created. Of course, there is some license of regulated enjoyment by which we can gradually cultivate our consciousness in the service of the Lord. So that license is given. So that's why the Dharma Shastras are there. For advancement of sense gratification, the living entities are engaged in the work of this world, and they aspire heavenly happiness after death. Right. So those who have idea of dharma, they want to perform pious activities in the next life. They want better sense enjoyment, right? And then those who do not have that idea, those who have linear understanding of life, sometimes you see they achieve success by working hard, and then they say, okay, even if I die, I want to make sure that my family members, they continue live and be happy. So in this way, though they might not, they don't know what's going to happen after death, and so they would not be able to keep up with if their children and descendants, they are all happy or not. But the idea is there that I want to do something, and if they are happy, I'll be happy. Otherwise, it really makes no difference to them, right? Once that person is dead, well, how does it matter to you? But that just suggests that everyone knows that, well, somehow or other I'm going to continue to exist, right? Even they do not accept directly, right? Internally they have that feeling. Otherwise, why they do that? They leave, to make sure, in the traditions where they bury the body, they said, okay, you bury me with my all these favorite things. And then if they have a pet, they would make arrangement. Well, if the pet dies, the pet is also buried with the owner, right? And in this way, if you have a lot of money, like there are people who would make arrangement with some companies who are selling that, hey, in future, if we develop a technology to revive life, we could bring you back to life. So they will charge you millions of dollars, and there's the agreement that when that person dies, they will freeze the body, right? So in this way, the aspiration to enjoy after death is there. Both, those who do not have an idea about afterlife, as well as those who have an idea about afterlife. So in this way, everyone is seeking sense gratification, whether they are, in this life and life after, whether that person is an atheist or a theist. The Lord being full in himself, Atmaram, has no attraction for so-called heavenly happiness. The heavenly demigods are only his engaged servants. The proprietor never desires the low-grade happiness such as the workers may desire. So many examples, right? So there are different levels of sense gratification. Jeff Bezos, the kind of sense gratification he pursues, he is not attracted by some of his even VPs in his company must be very rich, but he is supremely rich, right? At least in this material world, not supremely in absolute sense like Krishna. And he's probably not attracted by the kind of enjoyment some of the well-paid employees in his companies are attracted by. I consider that to be a low-grade happiness. So similarly, if that is true for Jeff Bezos, then what to talk about Krishna? He is supremely satisfied. So he is definitely not interested in heavenly pleasures. So he's aloof from material actions and reactions. For example, the rains are not responsible for different types of vegetation that appear on the earth. Although without such rains, there is no possibility of vegetative growth. That's a really good example. So without rain, you cannot grow grains. We learned that earlier. Annad bhavanti bhutani parjanyadanna sambhava. And the living entities subsist on grains, and the grains, they depend on the rains. The rains comes from sacrifice. The sacrifice comes from prescribed duties. Prescribed duties are described in the Vedas. The Vedas come from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, right? And so in this way, everything rests on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Similarly, so the grains, they are dependent on the rains, right? But the rains are not responsible. So the rain might come, but if somebody does not take good care of the crops, if the land is not tilled properly, if there is not enough manure, then the crops will not grow properly. So it's not the responsibility of the rains if the crop did not come out well, right? But still, the crops are dependent on the rain. So in the Vedic scripture, it is described that in material creation, the Lord is only the supreme cause. The immediate cause is the material nature by which cosmic manifestation is made visible. The supreme cause is Krishna or Vishnu, right? He provided all the 24 elements. But then who was who used those elements to do creation was Brahma. So the immediate cause of the creation in this material nature by manipulation of those elements was done by Brahma. So the Lord is again indifferent. He's not directly involved. He just provided a sandbox, and now you construct. So the created beings are of varieties. What are the varieties? Well, they're demigods, they're human beings, they're lower species of life. And all of them, they are subject to the reactions of good and bad activities. Lord only provides the facilities for such activities and the regulation of the modes of the nature. So he's providing the ingredient, but he's never responsible for the past and the present activities. Just like the rain is not responsible for the outcome of the crops or the yield of the crops. Similarly, the Lord provides ingredients, but is not responsible for how those actions are used. And the Lord does not lament, just like somebody might create a weapon. The weapon could be used for a good reason or a bad reason. But the creator of the weapon cannot be blamed for it, right? How they use that's not his problem, right? Just like the creator of AK-47, Kalashnikov, it's the most popular assault rifle in the whole world because I think it's lightweight, does not have much maintenance, does not break. A very simple mechanism, and so not complex mechanism, more complex and more chances of breaking. And it's, was first used by a lot of armies of the world, and then, eventually got popular among terrorists and, other people who have not so good intentions. Of course, he lamented at the end of the life, I wish I had not created this rifle. But he's not accountable for it, right? I mean, it's not that he was put into prison. Why did you create this rifle? Now it's a cause of a lot of trouble all over the world, right? So he's not responsible for it. Similarly, the Lord is not responsible, but the ordinary man might be affected by the success and the failure. Suppose somebody makes a creation that is supremely successful and they get a lot of praise and they get carried away by it. Or in the case of Kalashnikov, is the name of the person, a Russian, he was a soldier, or I think who created this. He lamented. But the Lord does not lament or rejoice how the ingredients are used. He is indifferent to them. So in this way, he's not implicated. In the Vedanta Sutras, it is confirmed Vaishamya Nairgrinyena Sapeksatvat. The Lord is never partial to any living entity. So not only is not affected, but is impartial in all respects. The living entity is responsible for his own acts. The Lord only gives the facilities through the agency of material nature, the external energy. So material nature comprising of the 24 elements, right? Anyone who is fully conversant with all the intricacies of this law of karma or fruitive activities does not become affected by the results of his activities. So this is an important statement. So if we understand how Krishna is not getting affected, right? So it's not just simply theoretical, but what it means is that if we know that how Krishna is not getting implicated, if we understand it systematically, philosophically, and try to apply that realization in terms of how we perform our activities, then we also don't get implicated. So it's not simply like theoretically I know and so I won't get implicated, but the idea is that when we know how Krishna is acting and we are engaging in his devotional service and we try to acquire qualities like him, and we understand that, well, we are soul, just like Krishna is a supreme spirit soul, we are also spirit souls. That means I am not a material. I don't have anything to do in this material world. It's a temporary sojourn. I have acquired things which are temporary, it will go away. The purpose of life is not to achieve some heavenly enjoyments. So I'm not interested in fruitive activities. Whatever activities that I do with the body that has been provided, I should do it for the satisfaction of Krishna. So in this way, we are also not affected, right? So we acquire the nature of Krishna by proper understanding. So in this way, we are not implicated, right? Just like if I want to become something, I have to emulate someone who is already there, right? Why do people have idols, right? They look upon them and they meditate on their activities and they see how they are acting and they try to become like that. So we are spirit souls. We are part and parcel of Krishna. So our original qualities are same as Krishna, though they are in minute proportions. But we are right now over, we are covered by our conditioning, by the material nature. And so we have forgotten our spiritual identity. But that can be revived. It's already in there, it's dormant. But when it is revived, we acquire the same qualities as the Supreme Spirit. And so we also don't become affected by the results of his activities because we act in which the way Krishna is acting. We are not motivated by fruitive results. In other words, the person who understands this transcendental nature of the Lord is an experienced man in Krishna consciousness. And thus he is never subject to the laws of karma. So Srila Prabhupada says he is experienced. It's just not a theoretical understanding. One has applied that in one's life and is experienced it. One who does not know the transcendental nature of the Lord, who thinks that the activities of the Lord are aimed at fruitive results, are the activities of ordinary living entities, certainly becomes entangled in the fruitive reactions. So this is a very, very important point. Srila Prabhupada in just few sentences explain this nicely. First, he said over here, experienced. When you have real experience of why Krishna is not implicated, how he is acting, then we would automatically attempt to act in such a way, acquire that kind of attitude. On the other hand, others, because they are engaged in fruitive results, because that is their mentality, they look upon Krishna as him also having the same fruitive mentality. Jaisi drashti vaisi srishti, right? You see the world as you are. So that's why the Krishna was such a sensual person. He had so many wives. He enjoyed with the gopis, right? And then so you think he's just materialistic, just like us. And because of that faulty understanding, they continue to pursue such a materialistic life. So it applies both ways. When somebody is fruitive, they see the whole world is like me. But one who knows the supreme truth is liberated soul fixed in Krishna consciousness. So this is the way by which one who understands the truth about me also does not become entangled in fruitive reactions of work. What is the truth? There is no work that affects me, nor do I aspire for the fruits of action. This understanding most people don't have. They think Krishna is just a sensual person. He acted for his own benefit, right? And so, because they have faulty understanding, they perpetuate such a fruitive mentality. Okay, I think we went a little bit over time, but I'm glad we were able to cover this verse. So we covered 4 verses. I'll take a break. If there are any questions that I can answer, I can attempt to answer. You can take some questions. Yes,
One quick question, Prabhuji. Here, it's written somewhere, Prabhupada mentions that the Lord treats everyone equally. But a lot of times in other lectures also, I have heard that, the Lord has a special place for the devotees. Even if you see like maybe for Arjuna there was a special place for him where because of the different ways he helped Arjuna was able to overcome his enemies. Are you getting my point, Prabhuji?
Yeah.
How do we understand that?
Yeah. So actually, the Lord is neutral, in the sense that he is not affected by honor or dishonor, right? And so if somebody comes and does favors to him, like the demigods and the demons, right? So demons, they do not accept the authority of Vishnu. The demigods, they accept the authority of Vishnu. But both of them, they are, most demigods also, they're not pure devotees of the Lord, right? They're seeking different benedictions. We see Indra, right? Yeah, here's a good example. Like Indra, when he lost the heavenly kingdom to Bali Maharaj, he was overtaken by Bali, right? And the mother of Indra, Aditi, she went to the Lord and said, well, now we don't even have our home. My sons, they're all homeless, in the sense, they're taken over by the demons.
Okay.
So, please take care of us. So whoever approaches the Lord actually makes no distinction. He takes care of them. So he helped Indra, who had materialistic idea, right? He wanted to regain his position. The Lord helped him by appearing as Vamana Dev, and he took away the kingdom from Bali and gave it back to Indra. But in the process, he delivered Bali also, right? Another example, we say Ravana. Lord Rama, when he was about to attack Lanka, Vibhishan came and surrendered to him, and all his associates of Lord Rama said, don't trust him. He's the brother of Ravana, right? Generally, it's same demoniac family. You cannot trust him. But Rama says, no, anyone who comes and surrenders to me, I will accept him. What to speak about Vibhishan, who is a devotee? Even Ravana himself comes. I'll forgive him. Not only that, if he does that, I'll make Vibhishan the king of Lanka, and I'll make Ravana the king of Ayodhya. And I'll make Bharat the king of Ayodhya in spiritual world. So you see, the Lord is completely impartial. Shishupal was liberated, Putana was liberated, right? Putana. So Lord only looks at what as long as one is trying to associate with him, whether with a good intention or a bad intention, right? He gets the same reward. Like Shishupal, all the demons, Putana, Kamsa. So in this way, the Lord is impartial, because if the Lord makes a distinction between what who is favorable versus unfavorable, then he is no different from an ordinary person. Now the question when it comes to devotees is why the Lord is different. Because if you see, the three mentalities are different. Those who are approaching Krishna or Vishnu for some material benediction, like the demigods. Demigods are seeking material benediction from Vishnu. The demons, they are also seeking material progress, but they are not seeking Vishnu. So they are inimical to Vishnu. But Krishna makes no distinction between demigods and the demons, right? He just says that, he just looks, well, they are both materialistic, right? But he says, okay, I'll take care of both of them. So he provides, he gives the same, the resources, natural resources for everyone, that the demigods as well as demons. He's not saying, oh, air, water, fire, air, all the grains, the forest, all the opulences, the minerals, it's only available to demigods, not to the demons. It doesn't do that. Even someone is an atheist, he gets the same facilities as someone who is a theist. He's not holding anything back. But the devotees, how is a devotee different? Devotee is different from both demigods and demons. Demons, they deny the personality of Godhead. Demigods, they accept the personality because you think, okay, this is the way by which we can get some material benediction, but they're not pure devotees. They see that Vishnu is the proprietor, and because he is the proprietor, he can provide us things for our own gratification, right? The demons, they deny that. No, we'll achieve it on our own. But the devotees, they don't even consider Vishnu or Krishna as, especially Krishna, they do not consider him as the God, right? They have a special, like Arjuna, he says, you are my friend, right? You're my cousin. So then Krishna reciprocates in that way. So Krishna reciprocates at the level of friendship. Okay, if you are associated with me in the mood of friendship, well, I am your friend. Because you consider my friend, I'm going to react and reciprocate accordingly. And so for the sake of friendship, he's willing to be called someone who broke his vow. He broke his vow that I'm not going to pick up any weapon. And so when Arjuna was in danger, he said that I would rather protect Arjuna, who is my friend, than be held by the vow that I took that I won't pick up a weapon. So in this way, yes, the Lord is neutral, but then he has a special relationship with his devotees, and he just reciprocates the way they are reciprocating. Ye yatha mam prapadyante tams tatheva bhajamiham. Today we learned that verse, right? So if the demons, and the demigods, they are approaching Krishna in a one particular way, and so to that extent Krishna is reciprocating, right? And the devotees, they are not looking upon Krishna as God, right? And so they are just approaching Krishna in a particular relationship, and the Lord reciprocates in that relationship. Demigods are seeking something, and Krishna provides that. And the demons, they are not seeking, then the Lord still provides them. You see, so you see the neutrality comes when someone does not have any relationship with Krishna, then the Lord is neutral. But when somebody has a relationship with Krishna, then Lord reacts according to the relationship they have and how they express. And does that make sense?
Yes, Prabhuji. Even actually, as you were speaking, even the example of Putna came to my mind. Like, even though she came to kill Lord Krishna, she was given the position of mother in the spiritual world.
Right. Even like, so when Lord came to deliver Gajendra, he also delivered the crocodile.
Yes.
Right. He first chopped off the head of crocodile even before he delivered Gajendra. As soon as he chopped off the head of crocodile, he was delivered. Right. So Lord is neutral in that regard. He does not withhold anything back from those who are not his devotees.
Got it, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Okay, any other questions? If there are no other questions, we'll conclude the class. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.